Yes, let's talk about hockey, the show that journeys through the history of the sport of ice hockey from its disputed origins to the game we see today. Back in 1972, the Canadians and the Soviets assembled their best players to throw down in an 8-game match known as the Summit Series. While Canada was represented by the best of the NHL, the Soviets were represented by players from the best league east of the Atlantic, the Soviet Championship League.
Though an attempt to organize a Russian league in 1933 failed, due to the lack of players and equipment to implement the idea, the Soviet promoters of the game would be granted their wish 13 years later, when the Institute of Physical Culture and Sport greenlighted the arrangement of the first Soviet Hockey Championship. Spanning from December 22, 1946 to January 24, 1947, the league's first season was played in more of a tournament style, with 12 teams from around Russia, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Ukraine broken up into 3 groups for a preliminary round. In the prelim round, teams in each group played 3 games against one another, after which the top 7 teams advanced to a finals round. In this round, the remaining teams were divided into 2 groups, one for the top 3 and another to play for the 4th through 7th place rankings. The top 3 group played 4 games against each other, while the second group played only 3 games, with the season's final standings determined after this round. After going 3-0 in the prelims and then 2-2 in the final round, the Dynamo Moscow club would emerge as the first champion of the new Soviet League, thanks to a superior total goals score against the other 2 clubs in the finals. The following season, the league's format would be altered from a short tournament style to that of an 18-game season, where the team with the best record would be crowned the champion. This time around, the CSKA Moscow club's 16-1-1 record would reign supreme and earn them the 1948 championship. Over the next 43 seasons, the league's championship would always end up with one of 5 clubs, all of which played out of the city of Moscow, but it would be the CSKA Moscow club that would stand atop all others. Known more commonly in the West as the Central Red Army team, due to its past affiliation with the Soviet Army, the club would see legendary names such as Vsevolod Babarov, Valery Kharlamov, and Vladislav Tretiak donning the CSKA uniform over the generations, helping the club lay claim to 32 Soviet League championships over 45 seasons, including 3 separate streaks spanning 4 years in the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, as well as a record 13 straight titles from 1977 to 1989. In fact, it was during their reign in the 1980s that CSKA Moscow featured one of the most feared lines in hockey history, the KLM Line. Derived from the last names of its 3 members, Vladimir Krutov, Igor Larionov, and Sergei Makarov, this line would tear the Soviet League and international opposition apart, tallying 1,299 combined points while together in the Soviet League, and 3.3 points per game during the Canada Cup tournaments. To make matters worse for the opposition, the KLM line was also backed on the blue line by 2 of the best defensemen in the world during the 1980s, Vyacheslav Fetisov and Alexei Kasatonov, forming an even greater force known as the Green Unit, named so because they wore green jerseys in practice.
Though CSKA Moscow was the top dog in the league, there would be the occasional gap in the Red Army club's dominance. The first club to end a CSKA dynasty was the VVS Moscow Club, which represented the Soviet Air Force. Led by former CSKA star Vsevolod Babarov, VVS Moscow established their own dynasty in the Soviet Championship League during the early 50s, outscoring opponents 207-56 and grabbing the league title in 1951, 1952, and 1953.
Another club to break up a couple of dynasties was Krylia Sovietov Moscow, a club that represented the Soviet aircraft industry. In 1956-57, led by top scorers Alexei Gurasev and Mikhail Bychkov, the Krylia Sovietov club went 29-1 and outscored the opposition 186-47 to claim the 1957 league title. However, it would be another 17 years before Krylia Sovietov tasted ultimate victory again. This time they boasted 3 of the league's top 5 scorers in their run to the 1974 league title, putting an end to a 4-year Cisca dynasty. During the 1960s, the Spartak Moscow team, representing the Spartak Moscow Sports Club, would nab a few league titles of their own. Led by the likes of Vyacheslav Starshinov and Alexander Yakusev, who ranked among the league's top 5 scorers during at least 3 separate seasons, the Spartak club took home the league title in 1962, 1967, 1969, and once more in 1976. Finally, we come back to the Dynamo Moscow club. After winning the inaugural league title in 1947, it would be another 7 years before they rose back to the top, when the offensive performances of Alexander Uvarov and Viktor Klimovich led the team to the 1954 championship. However, following the 1953-54 season, Dynamo Moscow could do no better in the league standings than second place for 36 seasons. That is, until goaltender Vladimir Mishkin and defenseman Mikhail Tatarinov helped the club put an end to Cisca's 13-year dynasty in 1990. Dynamo Moscow would then pull off repeat performances in 1991 and 1992, creating the last championship dynasty that the league would see. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union during 1991, the league was renamed the Cis Championship League in 1992 before folding following Dynamo Moscow's 3rd consecutive title. Over its 46-year history, the Soviet Championship League contained as few as 9 teams to as many as 20 teams during a single season. Numerous hockey legends laced up their skates to play for the clubs that still rank today among the best who have ever played the game. However, the torch of the old league never went out, but was picked up and carried on almost immediately with the formation of the International Hockey League in 1992.